Hello everyone, welcome to Scorched Toys at Anymoon.com's review of Bandai's DX VF31J Immelman Custom. This toy was released in December 2016 for 21,600 yen. Unlike some of Bandai's recent releases that came in flimsy cardboard boxes with cardboard taped to styrofoam trays, this toy comes in a beautiful, sturdy box that has a flip-top lid that reveals a teaser cover before revealing the toy itself. There are a lot of accessories and they're bundled underneath another cover, making the presentation very nice and tidy. You do get a lot of accessories. You get the pilot figure, a co-pilot figure, 2 knives with a pivot gimmick. There's the individual hologram device, which if you've seen Delta, you'll understand a little bit better. It's in an arrow, and then there's another one in a square position. There's 6 sets of fixed posed hands. There's the display stand, which you might recognize from VF171 releases. It comes with 3 clear display stand adapters for fighter, Gearwalk, and Batroid mode, and of course instructions. We're going to start with that display stand, which again, if you're familiar with any Frontier toys, you're probably familiar with this display stand, except now it's got a clear adapter on it. That's specific obviously for the VF31 toy, and it raises the question, why not just make the whole thing clear? That would have been a neat twist on it. Anyways, there are little hooks towards the front. They go around the hip mechanism for Batroid mode, and then the bottom lines up with the, I guess they're veneer thrusters, whatever that is, maybe they're missile ports on the back, and it should lock in pretty tightly and hold the toy perfectly well, but there's not a whole lot you can do with it. You can't pivot anything, it's just on a display stand, and that's really all there is to it. So very basic, not very exciting there. Removing the toy, we can start to look at some of the flaws. We'll get to the good stuff too, because there's plenty of that. You can see there's a rather sizable gap behind my cockpit. I can squeeze and tighten it up, but that is a sliding mechanism for transformation, and it doesn't quite hold together as well as one would hope. The big flaw for fighter mode is going to be underneath. That is the landing gears. Now, part of this is really not Bandai's fault. It's the way the VF31 was dreamed up by Kawamari, but it's definitely questionable. To get the rear landing gears, open the kneecap, slide it forward, and then pivot it back, and that will expose the landing gear. You then have to rotate the tire like so. And as you can see here, you're not going to create a whole heck of a lot of clearance. Now, unlike other Valkyrie toys, the gun on the VF31 tucks in very tightly to the body, so you don't need a lot of clearance underneath. But certainly that is a very odd design choice, and it makes for very low-hanging, dragging landing gears. Now, they do have rubber tires that spin independently, and they're integrated obviously, so those are some positives. The front landing gear, there's a little bit of a trick I'll show you. You push down and pry your fingernail in right at the hinge, and that's how you open that door. There's no real obvious way to open them otherwise. And then that's got an articulated tow bar to it. Let's see here. There we go. A little articulated tow bar there. So there are your landing gears out. Obviously, the rear one's pretty dinky, not the best. Now, the other thing that's a little controversial here is that they've added a lot of gold coloring to the canopy, and it makes it so it's very difficult to see the pilots within. Now, of course, the canopy does open, and we do have individual pilots that are nicely detailed. I'll show you them more in just a moment. There's one more little feature that's actually moving on to the cool side, is we have these back trap doors that slide forward and reveal those little hologram devices that Valkyrie uses. Should I just call them Valkyrie? Yeah. You know who I'm talking about. We also have the little removable heat shields or covers for the intakes. That's been fairly standard for a while now. The detail obviously of that turbine within not so hot, but it's there. It'd be nice if there was a little paint application there. Then you have those canards. Now the canards themselves have nice little ways to figure out if you got them in the right position, but they are easily bumped out of place. So just handling it, you can see it kind of moves around. So for the front canards, you just push them all the way down, keep them pushed down, and lift up until you can't lift up, and then you know it's in the right spot. The rear, I don't know, stabilizers, they get bumped around a little more during handling by me, but if you push them all the way down, get them seated, and then push them outward, they should reach a point where they stop. And so then again, you know you have everything in the right position. Now you may have noticed that I didn't mention any stickers coming with the toy, and that's because the toy has a ton of pre-applied painted detail. As you can see as we kind of bring it across here, there are lots and lots of different little painted on aspects, and the overall look is very, very nice. So while there isn't any stickers, you do not need to fret that. In fact, you should be happy about that. Another common question was probably how much metal is in this toy. And the answer to that is not a ton, but there is metal, like there has been on previous releases, sort of where it matters, and in a couple gratuitous places, right? Like, so the landing gears are metal, so you don't have to worry about breaking those. The feet, you can see inside the feet, there's a lot of metal there. Gives it some good heft, and you'll see more of that when we extend things to do transformation. And then the metal in the joints, obviously. So metal where you want it. The toy is 32 centimeters long, which makes it 1/60 scale for those of you who are concerned about maintaining that scale for your collection. Now, I mentioned earlier a gimmick regarding the pilots, so we can open up the canopy. First, let's take a closer look. Now, the pilots do fit in very securely, so that's good. In fact, the back pilot's a little too secure. She almost looks like she's cramped in there. Now, here are the actual figures. I was a little let down that the female figure has a helmet on. It seems like it's just a way for them to use the same mold for all of the girls, especially since I don't really remember them wearing helmets very often in the show. So that's a bit of a bummer. Now, the 2-seat conversion from the VF or YF29 and VF25 toys is here and present. So what you can do is just bring this second seat forward, and then you have a compartment concealer piece. And that's when you first buy the toy, this piece is already installed. And then that just goes in right behind the pilot, like so. And now you're back to a one-seater version of the vehicle. Some of you may be aware that this isn't the first time we've had a Valkyrie named Siegfried. There was the Kronos Siegfried toy, apparently, because it says right on the leg, Siegfried 001. And some of you might be thinking that the VF31 must just be a remold of some small portion of this YF30 toy. And it's really not. While there are many similarities between the two, as far as I could tell, there's very few parts that are simply carried over from the YF30 toy. You can see everything has a slightly different shape. They have different transformation mechanisms. Not a whole lot in common. So that was surprising to me. While I've got the toy turned over, you can see that there are hard points on the wings. There's no accessories currently that take advantage of that, so hopefully that's a prelude to a follow-up accessory bundle. Also, you can see these guns underneath next to the legs. There's nothing that keeps them in the proper position, so as you handle them, they tuck inward. It would have been nice if there was a little resistance there that kept it in the right position. And we'll see that problem again rear its head in Gearwalk and Batroid modes. You may remember that the YF30 had a Gearwalk mode that required a cradle of some sort, some additional piece. That is not the case for the VF31. It is perfect transformation. I have a separate transformation guide. I highly encourage you to check it out. It's got a lot of nifty little details. Here is Gearwalk mode, rock solid, lots of fun little additions as well. The feet have a nice little ratcheting. You can hear. They lock in position, hold up the toy very well. There's a swivel at the knee, and there is a pivot up at the Gearwalk joint as well. Very nice stuff, very solid. The backpack, which you could theoretically have out in fighter mode, has two different parts that pivot on their own, and it rotates back and forth. You can remove the gun. I'll show you that in a little bit. There's also the ability to swing the guns out on the forearms. If you're not going to remove the gun and put it in the hands, this gives you a weapon to go by. Now, this is also a point where you can see one of the negatives here, and that's the articulated hands that come on the toy. They are able to stay in for fighter mode. You don't have to swap them out, but once you get here, the trigger finger does not have a knuckle while all the other fingers do, and that means you can't really make fists. So in a position like this where you're using the forearm guns, you kind of have to have these awkward open hands, or you would just go ahead and swap out one of the fixed posed hands. To remove the gun, you're just going to go ahead and apply a little upward pressure. Now there's a tooth in the back that's going to be a little tough to get free, but when you do, it'll look like this. This shows you the mechanism there by which you can attach a hand. You can use the hand that's on the toy, but it's not going to grip it very well, and you're going to be relying a lot on gravity. A better thing to do is go ahead and grab one of your fixed posed hands and thread that on. And then you're going to want to pinch it closed. And now you can go ahead and just pop off the hand that's on the toy, pop on your new hand, and there you go. It's nice, tight. You can do whatever you want with it. Speaking of which, this is an incredibly solid gear walk mode if I hadn't noticed or hadn't mentioned it. So there you go. You also have a knife. You can put a knife in another one of your fixed posed hands, but you can flip open the arm, collapse the knife, and then it'll just peg right into place if you want to store it. There we go. So here's the display stand again. Now we've got the Gearwalk adapter on there. And the nice thing about the Gearwalk adapter is that it actually feeds into two little pegs on the back of the toy. So that helps you really know that everything is being locked into place tightly. So here we are from the back. There it goes. That's not going to go anywhere. And again, you can't really do anything with this display stand. You can see it wobbles a little bit. There's no articulation to it, no pivot points. It just does a decent job of holding your toy steady. So if you wanted to move the feet in some other way where they couldn't normally stand, this is your opportunity to do it. Here is Batroid mode, and I do encourage you to check out my transformation guide. Right off the bat, you'll notice there is a lot of weight on the back of the toy. And yet it's still holding all that weight up, and that tells you that the hips are very strong on this toy. Here's what it looks like from behind. The other side, nothing changes in regard to the backpack. You still have the pivots and the swivel ability. Moving down to the head, you've got the ability to cock left and right. It's on a ball joint, so left, right, up, down, and turn. Obviously, very good neck on this, letting you get a large range of motion. You have shoulders that let you go forward and back, up and down. Then you have the ability at the arm to pull away from the body, like so. There is a rotation point right here in the middle of the arm. There's also another rotation point in the forearm. That's a transformation mechanism rotation point, but you could use it as you wish. Then obviously the double joint mechanism at the elbow. Pretty good range of movement there. Hands have the ability to kind of pivot back and forth due to transformation, and they're on a ball joint. I've kind of gone over the articulated hands already, so I won't really harp on them any further. Moving down, there is a waist joint. It's limited by the crotch a little bit, but still, as far as Valkyrie toys go, pretty good stuff. The hips are where things really shine. They're ratcheted, and that's how you get that super strong hip that can hold up the back of Batroid mode. Good to see there. You obviously can also get a very wide stance. Below the hip is the Gearwalk joint, and as an added bonus, the ability to twist at that point. Good to see. Going down, we have the knee, backwards, forwards, and rotation point. All good stuff there. The ankle, you could extend. It'll lock into place, and then you can get very much good movement there, back and forth, up and down. There's a little armor piece on the back, might pop off. It's on a ball joint. No big deal if it does. So we'll recess it there. So overall, you could also, of course, swing out your guns. Overall, a lot of fun to play with. I enjoy this toy immensely in Batroid mode. And this toy is so much fun in Batroid mode, it's almost a shame to use the included display stand, but you got one. So let me show you how to use it. This is the display stand adapter for Batroid mode. Just going to slide it in the back. Now it does a good job of not inhibiting your waist swivel. Then you're just going to go ahead and plug it on top of the display stand arm. And there you go. Now you have your toy in a taller, stable, but again, nothing much more you could do with it, display stand position. Here's a comparison with other Macross toys, and you can see that the VF31 is very tall. At just about 25, a little over 25 centimeters tall, it again is 1/60 scale. You can make it a little larger if you wanted to by extending the ankles. Not sure why you'd want to. The YF30 over here on the left is very much the spiritual precursor, but it feels like a prototype for the VF31 now that we have the VF31. Many of the very positive things that we saw in the YF30 made it to the VF31, and many of the weaknesses of the YF30 are completely resolved by the VF31. You no longer need that bracket to hold things together in Batroid mode or Gearwalk mode. So while I like the YF30 toy, I like the VF31 even better. Another positive attribute of the VF31, it comes together and locks together very tightly. There aren't a lot of metal joints that seem like they're prone to loosening like we saw on toys like the VF27. So I'm even optimistic that this toy will continue to be a better toy with good playability into the future. In many ways, this toy has raised the bar for me. Toys that I used to think were pretty excellent, I now think are just good. So that is definitely the sign of a toy that I can easily recommend. Go out and get yourself one if you can. Obviously, it's a hot seller. Thanks for viewing, and check out anymoon.com for my full article.